Good morning, everyone. This is the first interview for the Cluck Summit. We will be meeting with Koen Stokes from Veg'd Urban Farms. Good morning, Koen. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well, Doug. How are you?
Oh, it's a great day. It's a beautiful day today. We are really excited to have you here. And if you'd like to go ahead and do an introduction of yourself and who you are so people get an idea, and then we'll start the questions from there.
Sure, of course. So my name's Koen Stokes. Primarily a horticultural nerd. I've been planting things and putting things in the ground and taking them out for upwards of about 30 years here in Texas, around the Bexar County area. But most recently, I've been raising backyard chickens for about a little over 5 years now. So I've learned a few things along the way and tried to feed them a little alternatively. We've got around 50 chicks right now, about 30 laying hens out there, and 20, maybe about 3-month-old chicks right now. I've got them in a 80 by 80 portion of my backyard, so it's a total 6,400 square feet for them to free range around. Primarily, I feed them. Well, I mean, I guess we can get into the details of that a little bit later, but that's pretty much who I am. And if we want to start with the questions, we can go from there.
Sure. So one of the first things we always talk about, and one of the biggest expenses for poultry operations, whether it be broiler or layer, is feed, right? Feed is really expensive. A group of 25 broilers in a 62-day period can eat upwards of 135 pounds of feed. So we're always looking for an alternative food source. What are your thoughts on alternative feed?
I almost feed my, I do feed my chicks, my layers with alternative feed pretty much above 90% of the time. The different methods that I do that, you got to make friends with breweries. I've made friends with a couple of breweries here in town that pretty much weekly will give me around 400 pounds of spent grain. So it's pretty much free. It'd be going into their dumpster. Sometimes I get a little bit more spent grain than I can handle. But the good thing with that is we can turn around and turn it into compost, or we can actually run black soldier fly larvae in it. There are special pods out there that if I get way too much grain, I'll put it in what's called a black soldier fly pod, and we can start feeding them protein out of that spent grain by feeding them black soldier fly larvae. Outside of that, there's a little company here in town that is a bokashi compost company. Sometimes they get a little bit too much food waste from restaurants that they can't process on their bokashi compost quickly. So I volunteer to take food waste, which is a really good diverse diet. It provides a really good diverse diet for my chicks in the backyard. A lot of protein comes from that.
Most people really don't know that the chicken used to be the garbage disposal of the farm, and they're omnivores like we are. So they'll eat anything. They'll eat just about anything we eat on the table, they'll eat. If you're growing your soldier fly larva that's providing your protein in your spent grain, the fermentation of that spent grain, does it provide some benefits to your chickens?
I would think so. I mean, I'm really, with the spent grain, it's fermented grain. It turns into beer, right? So, I mean, we're kind of just having a cold one with the chicks in the backyard, in my opinion. So, if you like beer, I think they like beer as well. So.
That makes sense.
And of course, any kind of fermented food is good for the gut, good for the microbiome. So, sometimes it's fun too in the case of beer.
Absolutely. Do you grow any fodders, or are you just allowing them to run through your gardens?
Oh no, I love to grow cover crops for the chicks. I can segregate a portion of the yard, and I can plant ryegrass in fall, clover, is probably the main two that I use a lot. Vetch is a good cover crop, vigorous cover crop for them. In fact, in the backyard, I lay down some expanded metal on top of half cinder blocks, so they can't, it's about 2 inches above the ground, and I'll seed with either, like I said, ryegrass or vetch, clover. I've even got some wild bird seed here that I'll throw back there. And that expanded metal, they're not able to scratch it, so I'll water it in, and it'll grow up 2 inches, and whatever pokes up above that expanded metal, they can forage off of.
So you're growing the cover crop straight in the ground. You're not doing fodder trays.
Right. So no, we're not using the fodder trays just yet. I am probably going to get my girlfriend Erica in on that, because we're starting to buy. She loves cardinals, and cardinals love sunflower seeds. And we've got probably about a 50-pound bag of sunflower seeds that we want to turn into more food. So yeah, I'm familiar with using the fodder trays. We're not incorporating it right now, but yeah, in about 8 days, you're gonna double the amount of food that you throw out there if you're growing fodder trays for sunflowers.
Yeah, we have another graduate of the program that is running a poultry operation in northern Texas. And I think they're doing about 40 pounds of fodder a day grown in trays to their 300 birds. And it's amazing. And they're free range. So they're getting all the bugs and the grasses plus the fodder.
Are they just using sunflower seeds, or are they doing anything other than that?
He's using barley as his primary source. Since it's the gold standard for fodder trays, he's using barley with great success.
Yeah, there's
we've also
variety that you can use, right?
But we've seen triticale is actually there's a big test going on at Oregon State right now on triticale, and it's providing almost 28% protein for the birds grown in trays. It's a little more finicky to grow, but barley seems to be the best. How much? What breeds of chickens are you raising?
All right, so I've primarily raised Plymouth Barred Rock. I love the Barred Rock. They're good heat tolerant, good meat bird, but mostly I keep them for the eggs, of course. They, never gets too cold for them here. They might get a little warm for them, but we set up a little mist system for them so they can cool down. Plenty of shade in the back too. But since I got a new girlfriend here, she wants a really diverse flock out there. So we've got, since she's come on in the past couple of years, we've got Americanas out there. We've got Cucumarans out there. I love buff Orpingtons too. So I think they look like the bluebell calf. So I like to see that in the backyard. They're beautiful looking chicks. So the cool thing with all these is they're not just cool to look at, but they're laying different colored eggs, right? So we've got the Barred Rocks lay a kind of a light brown egg. The Cucumarans do a chocolate colored speckled egg. The Americanas are Easter eggers, so we'll get some bluish green eggs out of them. Also, a really cool breed that I forgot till now is the red laced Wyandotte. I think it's the prettiest bird we've got back there. About 5 of those. They're really, really pretty.
So we're raising also free range poultry. We're raising the Easter eggers, Rhode Island Reds, Americanas, and for our meat birds, we're doing the Cornish cross. We've seen. Do you have any recommendations? And this is probably an off-the-wall question if you're not used to raising broilers, but the Cornish breed is probably the most widely used in the traditional CAFOs. And those birds on grass and pasture will move, but they don't move a lot. And they gain so much weight so fast that they can't move a lot. We've had good results with them in the tractors, in the mobile tractors, moving into the pastures. But do you have a recommendation for a bird that doesn't move a lot that you could feed either in a tray? I'm not sure that they could follow the rest of my birds in Northfield mobile, that 12-foot walk is a little tough for them sometimes.
Oh yeah, they get real top heavy real quick. I can't say that I have too much experience with that breed. I've kind of stayed away because from them. I do like the heritage breeds, the ones that are more for the egg layer reasoning. If we do get meat off of them, it's not really the sole purpose. It's just uh, sometimes what happens out here is we'll have to take one and butcher 'em. But uh, if I can think, it may be a difference in technique of how to feed them. It's a hanging feeder or multiple hanging feeders. That's closer to them, so they don't have to walk as much. But other than that, I'm not sure um, how they feed, what they prefer, and how much they struggle when they move around. Unfortunately.
Yeah, we're moving 2 hanging feeders inside of the mobile unit with them and putting them on fresh grass every day. We have not done fodder trays for them yet. I think that's probably the way we're going to have to go with them. And if our customers didn't, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I say it might be you might have to serve up their food on a silver tray for them.
Yeah, if my customers didn't want that size of bird, I mean, the Cornish cross is made for the breast. So if my customers didn't want that, I could probably go back with the heritage bird, but they're specifically asking for what they can get in a grocery store versus what the rest of us really want to grow. So we kind of have to go with that model,
Right.
which is something that we see that in the conversations a lot. So how are you doing? Have you noticed a difference in your water consumption or meat conversion based off of what you're feeding naturally versus pelletized feeds?
So I don't keep too close monitoring on what we're feeding, how much we're watering, but I can tell you that since we've consistently fed this spent grain from the breweries, these girls put on weight so quick. It it is, I guess, it is lower in carbohydrates because it has been boiled and cooked through. But they tear through that. I dump a pile out there that's about the size of like I said, it's about 400 pounds of grain every time that I get it. So it's a big trash bin that I fill and dump back there, and they go through that in a day. So it's and they're really that we just the chicks that we just started to put out there because we raised the chicks on starter crumble until we put them out there. But once we put them out there, you just see them, they start growing leaps and bounds. We should be probably taking measurements on their weights and the difference between, keep half inside for a little while longer, maybe a couple more weeks, and feed them on starter grain or starter crumbles, and then compare them to a couple weeks of growing outside and see if there's much of a difference there.
Gotcha. So when you feed your spent grain, are you dropping it all at one time, or are you rationing it for them?
So it used to be we were getting too much grain for the amount of birds that we have. Now it seems that we're not getting enough grain. I think the breweries have kind of slowed down a bit. So I did not ration it beforehand, but these days, yeah, I'm trying to do. I'll get about 3 bins full, and I'll dump it about I'll dump one every other day, probably to keep. We get like a weekly pickup from them. In fact, I have to get grain today, so I'll probably be doing that as soon as we're off the call. I'll dump one bin out there today, and then today's Sunday, so I'll put another one out there on Tuesday. And hopefully, between the 2 breweries, I'll work it out to I don't have a lapse in grain.
Sure. Keep your feed coming. That's awesome. So in your business, Veg'd Urban Farm, do you run your chickens through your vegetables, or do you find that they eat too many of the vegetables and the produce?
They're great pest management, but they do not discriminate between what we want to eat versus what they want to eat. I mean, they as soon as they go out there and they see what we're growing, they will opt for that. So there's that viral picture of chicken tunnels around the garden. I mean, that could be worked out. But nah, you really have to keep the chickens away from what you're growing. So it'd be another little bit of overhead to manage that.
So if you cover crops between the rows and put some type of row cover to keep them out, they'd be good pest management down your row systems, keep the bugs away from your plants.
Oh, that would be awesome if you worked on. Let's say you worked out half your beds, every other bed, but protected protected the other beds that you were growing in. You could be working cover crops and you could be growing cover crops and working the chickens in those beds, and then the next season switch it over. Um, or you could just do a whole plot at a time. That would keep fertility in the soil and keep your fertilizer costs down too. You don't want you composting right on top of your beds. Um, be really, really great for them.
Yeah, they're high in nitrogen. That'd be great for your fruiting plants. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it should break down. If we're looking maybe about 4 months or so, every 4 months of switching out. It should break down just well enough for it to kind of, you can work it in with a little cultivator at the top, maybe inch or two, and it break down enough so it wouldn't burn anything and just be good and natural compost and fertilizer for everything you grow.
That's awesome. Are there any topics that you would like to cover that we haven't touched already?
Yeah, I just like throw a recommendation out there. Don't get pigeonholed or chickenholed in one breed. There are your meat birds, and you got your best for the meat birds, but there are a whole variety of heritage breeds out there that will lay just a rainbow color of eggs, and they all have their own different I won't say personalities, but their own different way of living life, and it's very satisfying to see how all of them interact with each other. And don't just think about chickens. We can go to ducks too. We have ducks out here too. That'll lay a bigger egg, but those are even a better pest management, integrated pest management solution that doesn't impact the garden that much or as much as the chickens.
Yeah, the ducks can be can tear some things up, but they're a little more discriminatory versus what chickens are.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have you fed any biochar to your birds?
I haven't. If they did pick any up, I have a small area that I would burn that they have access to. So if they did pick any up, it would be kind of incidental. But if they have access to what we have, charcoal, out there. So I mean, I can monitor that. I ground some up and throw it in with their grit that we have out there. That's one thing we didn't talk about. I remember calling you a while ago, wondering how I was going to get more weight on these birds, and you recommended having some grit out there. And man, I'll tell you, I saw a difference. We got some plate sand out there. Oh, it's full in a tray all the time, so they get it and pick it up as they need it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We found in the meat conversion and feed conversion to meat on the birds that if the more grit you add, the better your conversion rate will be and faster. And we've experimented with play sand, but we found that crushed granite seems to be better than the play sand. Yeah, I mean, granite's pretty hard, and working in their crop is pretty entertaining. I can imagine granite versus sand. It's pretty entertaining, but I was surprised to see a difference in play sand versus granite. But granite is a much better conversion rate. Yeah, and if you need some biochar, I've got about probably 250 pounds of freshly made biochar here, made out of mesquite. So if you need some, I can bring you some.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I'll check that out. I was going to comment on the decomposed granite. It makes sense if you've ever gone quail hunting or whiteweed hunting, or and you've looked at those gizzards. It's not going to be grains of sand that you find more often. You're going to find little pebbles that are a little bit bigger than grains of sand. So I think that maybe why granite may work a little better for.
Oh, that's interesting. hadn't thought about it from that perspective. We catch them when we free range them. They'll run through our driveway and pick up rocks out of the driveway. They will go specifically to the driveway to find it. So we just started throwing the granite out there, and they migrate to that. So it's been interesting to see what their selective palate is.
That's cool. You're providing grit, but you're also reinforcing your driveway at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is snake season.
All the parts of the chicken.
Absolutely. We have found that, of course, it's springtime, so we're getting maximum nutrient density in our grasses and our forbs, and the snakes are starting to come out. And we moved them all back into the tractor the other night to put them away, and two of our laying hens, one found a baby snake and the other one found a scorpion simultaneously. And it was one of the most amazing tug of wars I've seen between 25 birds.
Yeah, that's something that I think people underestimate when it comes to chickens. These things are like ravenous dinosaurs or carnivores. I've seen them tear apart mice that was under there. I moved a stock tank, and there was a mama mouse and some babies. And when I moved that stock tank, that flock of hens just went in and got a good extra shot of protein in that scenario there.
So tell us a little bit about, because we're going to use you in the fall. We're gonna request that you come back and talk to us about the market gardening class, and we're going to probably video that and bring you out here to show the live through the video all the things that you did in the last market gardening class for us, which was amazing. Tell us about Veg'd Urban Farm. Tell us what you do there.
Yeah, sure. It's a concept farm. I think it's only on a half acre. I'm in the city limits of San Antonio, but it's really to kind of put the idea out there that everybody can take responsibility in growing their own food. It doesn't matter how much land you have. I was a frequenter of farmers markets when I was growing heavily. I love growing the alternative crops. Tomatillos down here was something that not a lot of people grew, so I grew a whole yard full of them and sold out in the first week that I went to the farmers market. I just love resilient crops that'll grow here. I don't want to force anything that'll be just too much overhead, but also just the ease of growing around here. So I love to talk to different garden varieties. I love talking about perennial herbs, that kind of thing. Also working in the planting to your landscape to make it work better for you is another thing that I do love doing. So yeah, really want to get back into it full time, growing veggies here in Texas, Southern Texas. We've got a full growing year. We can grow year round. So there's not a day that you shouldn't be putting something in the ground or picking something out of it and eating it.
That's awesome. We have one of the mentees that's in our current cohort is setting up their farm business in the Houston area, and they intend on doing produce as well as chicken. One of the things you talk about in the market garden class that I think is important, she wants to grow excess produce that she can feed to her chickens. And you talk about growing in the shoulders of the season. And I'd really like for you to touch on that topic, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So we have very narrow windows here in Texas between seasons that are kind of reminiscent of, let's say, the growing climates of up north. That let's say down in the fall and somewhat through the winter, down here we'll have something that's similar to the summers of up north. So in that sense, we take what is growing well up there in the summers up north and try and grow them down here in fall and winter. So onions are really good for that. Garlic's really good for that. Any part of the brassicas are really, really great for that. Snow peas is a prime example of that. I'll kind of go a little bit further on that. Snow peas, we'll want to plant them, get them started maybe early to mid October, and they'll be producing maybe late December. But the thing is, at that point, we want to avoid a frost. So we'll do everything to cover them. And if you've ever had snow peas freshly grown, they're one of the best veggies out there. Um, so if you can avoid a frost or mitigate the frost, you'll be growing snow peas, which is a highly valuable crop. If you're going to take it to market all throughout the winter here.
And it's a food source as well for your birds.
Yeah, and if that is a lot of organic matter that's going to be trellised up. By the end of the season, for those, you'll rip that down, just throw it back to the chicks, and they love ripping that off, ripping pieces of that off.
That's awesome. So I don't have any more questions. If there's any more topics that you would like to cover, please feel free to do so. And if Erin, I know that she's been listening and muted, she may have thought of a question she wanted to ask.
There is something I'd like just to kind of give a little bit of an overview. I like the model that you do for livestock out there in your crop rotation, your rotational grazing rather, and how that's kind of influenced by Joel Salatin method. Now he runs his pigs over there. You can do the same thing with a good flock of birds, and you don't need an expensive land to do it. You just need a lot of density per your paddock. So I'm going to try and do that here on just half an acre in that 80 by 80. I'm going to try and quarter it up so there'll be quadrants, and we'll have the chicks in one quadrant for maybe a couple of days and just rotate them counterclockwise, however it works out, with one stationary coop in the center for them to access from every quadrant.
Oh, I think that's awesome. And you do bring up a good point. We are actually rotationally grazing multi-species. So we're now doing cattle in our paddocks. Well, we've always done cattle in the paddocks. Mm-hmm. We've now integrated poultry into those paddocks. So every 48 hours, the soldier fly, the horn fly is a predator to your cattle. It's the fly you see on the backs of your cattle most often. Every 48 hours, they gestate a new batch of flies, and without the cow, they wouldn't exist because they lay their eggs in the cow manure. So by moving chickens into your rotation 48 hours later, the birds will scratch apart the manure for you, spread your manure, and they eat the hornfly larva and reduce the insect load on your cattle. So you can absolutely do rotational grazing with multi-species, and just like they do in nature with the cowbirds following the cattle around, it works great, and it definitely reduces your insect load on your cattle. It's a great point.
How beautiful is that? A little example of permaculture helping out our...
Absolutely, and you don't have to spray. Yeah, you don't have to spray anything in your cows. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to cover, my friend?
I think that's about it. Make friends with your local breweries, as much as I can tell you. They're just throwing away that spent grain, so let's go out there, grab it, and put it to use.
Well, now that you mention it, I have a brewery and a winery here that I will go hit and see what they've got in excess. So I might be doing some spent grain myself. Well, I very much appreciate your time, my friend. We will.
Always good to hear from you.
We will set up the links for you so that you can get to this audio recording as well and use it on your own social media. We very much appreciate you getting up early on a Sunday to have this conversation with us, and we look forward to the market garden class, and we thank you for your time.
Oh, same here, Doug. Thank you so much, man. Really, really love what you guys are doing out there.
And you have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, you do the same.